You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
You might have seen the kerfuffle regarding Saturday Night Live. There was an issue of what was called equal time regarding Kamala Harris's appearance. Let me just get into what equal time is. And equal time is the understanding, the rule, I should say, by the FCC, which says that each candidate should have no less of an opportunity to be heard or seen on the public broadcasting airways. Quote, the FCC seeks to ensure that no legally qualified candidate for office is unfairly given less access to the airwaves outside of bona fide news exemptions than their opponent. Equal opportunities generally means providing comparable time and placement to opposing candidates, but does not require a station to provide opposing candidates with programs identical to the initiating candidate. Kamala Harris appeared on Saturday Night Live. Obviously, that's NBC. We'll play that for you. The whole bit was about 2 minutes long. There was one of the FCC members, I think there are 5, and a Trump appointee specifically. So there's that, was saying that this was a violation of equal time. Donald Trump should have been given equal time. Yes and no. Yes, if you want to go by the strict interpretation, because NBC is a broadcast outlet. This equal time does not apply to cable. So if you say, well, what about all the times that Donald Trump went on, Fox and Friends? That's cable. Cable's a private signal. NBC, ABC, CBS, those are broadcast stations. They're actually broadcasting and they use the public airways. So the FCC is, with respect to that, governs equal time for that. So, and the FCC and equal time does not apply to the internet, social media. So just because Joe Rogan had on Donald Trump doesn't mean that Kamala Harris can say, hey, what about equal time? Now, there is a question, or the question could be asked, well, what about when Donald Trump came on KFI? If the Harris campaign went to KFI and said, hey, I heard Donald Trump was on for a half hour with John Cobell, we want equal time, then KFI would probably have to extend that invitation. I don't think that the Harris campaign wanted to come on KFI, so it was a moot point. But as far as equal time, that's where it begins and ends. It has to be a broadcast station, radio, television, not cable, not social media. So it doesn't apply.
Even if it's a news joke, or not a news joke, but even if it's like a satire, that doesn't count?
The fact that she appeared makes it an equal time issue, or could be, it could be looked upon. It wasn't litigated, so we'll never know. NBC ultimately said, here, Donald Trump, you can have a minute and a half. We'll air your ad or whatever during Sunday Night Football. Going back to what I was saying about equal time, it does not have to be the same show. It doesn't have to be Saturday Night Live. It has to do with the outlet, which is NBC. So they gave him time on NBC. It doesn't have to be Saturday Night Live. Now, Saturday Night Live has said, hey, we've extended an invitation to Donald Trump. He declined. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying that's what Saturday Night Live said. But NBC said, look, F it. Here's a minute and a half. We'll air your ad. We'll play it on Sunday Night Football. They did last night, twice, if I'm not mistaken. Here is the Kamala Harris bit, which led to the controversy.
This is it. The last campaign stop in Pennsylvania. Gosh, I wish I could talk to someone who's been in my shoes, a black South Asian woman running for president, preferably from the Bay Area.
That's Maya Rudolph talking as Kamala Harris.
You and me both, sister.
It is nice to see you, Kamala.
It is nice to see you, Kamala. And I'm just here to remind you, you got this. Because you can do something your opponent cannot do. You can open doors.
I see what you did there, like to a garbage truck, right?
I don't really laugh like that, do I?
take my Pamela. The American people want to stop the chaos
and end the drama
with a cool new stepmamala. Kick back in our pajamas and watch a rom-kamala.
Like Legally Blondula.
And start decorating for Christmas. Fa la 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 la. Because what do we always say? Keep Kamala and carry on a la. We know each other so well, we even finish each other's belief in the promise of America. Exactly. Now come on, let's bring it in. I gotta tell myself something over here. Come here. I'm going to vote for us.
Great. Any chance you are registered in Pennsylvania?
Nope, I am not.
Well, it was worth a shot.
And live from New York, it's Saturday!
Okay, that's the Saturday Night Live skit that was responded to by a member of the FCC. And so this is what the Trump campaign offered to be played during Sunday Night Football. And I think they played it at the beginning and the end, near the end of the broadcast.
Hello to our great sports fans, and I hope you're having a fantastic time. We're 2 days away from the most important election in the history of our country. We've got to save our country, and it needs saving. It's in very bad shape. The worst economic numbers in generations were just announced 2 days ago.
Wait a minute. I thought the Great Recession was like 2010. How can it? Never mind.
Generations were just announced 2 days ago. We're losing jobs. We're losing everything, including viability. We're going to end up in a depression based on what's been happening. We've never seen anything like it, at least for the last 40 years. We have to straighten it.
The Great Recession was like 2010. I lived through it. I remember it, okay? It was really bad. Banks were like going all to hell. People were losing their houses. I remember. I was alive for that. Weren't you, Twala? Weren't you alive for that?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering because this doesn't seem accurate.
We've never seen anything like it, at least for the last 40 years.
40 years ago. So that's 1984? Is that 40 years ago? Yeah, 84. I could have sworn it was like 14 years ago.
We've never seen anything like it, at least for the last 40 years. We have to straighten out our country. We have to close our borders. We have to lower our taxes. We have to get rid of inflation. And we're going to do it. Just remember, Kamala and her friends broke it. I'll fix it. Most important election in the history of our country. Go and vote.
Look, whether you vote for him or not, what he said there was factually untrue.
But it was also during football.
Well, no. Well, I will say this. NFL viewership audience skews right. So that, and also it's a huge audience. NFL football ratings, regardless of what you think about NFL, it still pulls in people. So there was a verifiable audience who saw it.
No, I dig that, but there's such a downer while watching the game.
Look, this is what is what they chose to submit, and that's what people got to see. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI Mo Kelly live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Got to let you know, show programming note. And this is just in from Chef Bruno earlier today in Katarina's Club. It's that time of year. Join us, Katarina's Club, for the 14th annual KFI Pastathon on December 3rd at the Anaheim White House. Together, we're celebrating 10 million meals served to kids in need. Drop by for the live broadcast, donate pasta and sauce, or join our online auction. You can't make it? Here's the key point. Starting November 20th, you can donate at any California, Nevada, or Arizona Smart and Final, or grab a Wendy's coupon book. Every bit helps nourish more families. Again, that's going to be at the Anaheim White House, December 3rd, from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Wake Up Call through Later with Mo Kelly. And if you didn't get enough of our live broadcast for the pre-Halloween soiree, well, we're going to be out there again on December 3rd at the Anaheim White House. I can't guarantee that Mark Ronner will be in the house this time around.
Well, one way or the other, you'll be able to hear my voice now.
I know, I may miss you. Stefan, I don't know whether you'll be in the house either. That's kind of a logistical nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always back and forth. We never know until like literally 2 days before.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We can always hope, but it will be December 3rd at the Anaheim White House from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. KFI Pastathon, the 14th annual. And we're celebrating 10 million meals served to kids in need. And if you go to KFIAM640.com, you will find all the other information just in case you want to read it for yourself, put it on your calendar. Just know that we're going to do this again. We're going to raise even more money. We're going to donate more sauce, and you can do it at any Smart and Final in California, Nevada, or Arizona, or you can grab a Wendy's coupon book. And I look forward to this every single year. I have this ongoing conversation with our program director, Robin Bertolucci. She and I will go back and forth about how much money we can raise in a given year. And I said, look, we're on a trajectory where there is no ceiling. There is no better audience than the KFI audience. You are consistent in your generosity and your donations. And each year you make this event better than the year before. And I'm going to salute in advance producer Michelle, who brings all this together. You get to see her the night of Pastathon, but you may not see all the work that she puts into it behind the scenes. So we're going to get an early start this year. You can start donating on November 20th, but you can start preparing as far as getting your sauce together and laying out your strategy, get your friends involved, get your colleagues involved for another great Pastathon, the 14th annual KFI Pastathon, coming up on December 3rd, starting at 5 a.m. all the way through 10 p.m. at the Anaheim White House. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we have to talk about these presidential endorsements, whether they matter at all, or why you might be hearing more of them this year than in previous election cycles. We'll tell you why.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI is Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere. The iHeartRadio app as we continue to celebrate the life and legacy of Quincy Jones. That's one of my favorite Frank Sinatra songs. But if you don't know your music, you may not know that Quincy Jones produced that along with the Count Basie Orchestra. Something else which has been going on with respect to the election is another day, another presidential endorsement. And it seems like there are more now than ever before, especially when it comes to celebrities, be it actors, be it musicians, be it athletes. Everyone seems to be endorsing a presidential candidate. Not Senate, not governor, not mayor. That's not sexy enough. It's got to be president. Harrison Ford, Han Solo, has endorsed Kamala Harris. Lady Gaga as well. In fact, Lady Gaga was appearing with Kamala Harris today. And I'm not one to believe that an endorsement on Monday night before a presidential election is going to garner any more votes. But it's a good entry point into the conversation. It's like, why are there so many entertainers dipping their toe into this pool? I would say it goes all the way back to Bill Clinton, and that's how it kind of started. And then with the candidacy of Donald Trump, it became supersized. But hear me out, going back to Bill Clinton. And if you're not old enough to remember, it used to be, it was frowned upon when presidential candidates would do anything that wasn't a part of legacy media or traditional media, be it newspapers, news programs. And back then you were not allowed to just phone in an interview. Like they say, phoning it in. That goes back to you'd actually have to show up for a presidential interview. You didn't have candidates calling in to Meet the Press or Crossfire or 60 Minutes. All of those were sit down expectations. You have to sit down for the interview. That changed. And it started to change with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton went on the Arsenio Hall show, which is a late night television show in the early 90s, and it was very popular. But campaigns started to realize that there was an overlooked voting segment. Younger people historically, when I say younger people, late teens, early 20s, maybe even early 30s, they were not usually the group that was mobilized to go to the polls. Voters tended to be older. The older you got, the more consistently you voted. And the people, and for me, during Bill Clinton, we were the young people. We were the Gen Xers. We were the young kids on the block. We were the least likely to vote in numbers. Well, the Clinton campaign said, well, let's see if we can reverse that or add to our coalition and doing non-traditional media. And I didn't have time to pull up the clip, but you can pull up the clip of Bill Clinton on Arsenio Hall show and actually playing saxophone with the band. And that, I think, revolutionized how campaigning was approached, where there are these set voting segments which are not being utilized. They're not being approached. They're not spending enough money and time with them to cultivate. Because there are two things. You want to cultivate that voting base for that particular election and also train them to consistently vote every single election. And I think if there was any one moment that I thought that politicians started to become more entertainers and rock stars, it was that particular moment. Was JFK a star? Yes. Did he hang out with celebrities? Yes. But general society didn't look upon the president as a part of Hollywood in the way that's the case now. Now you have someone like Donald Trump who came from Hollywood. He was best known for a TV show. And I think that supersized, and I would say put the whole Hollywood entertainment focus on politics on steroids. And I don't think we'll ever go back. But since that time, entertainers, high and low, have tried to attach themselves and affix themselves to politics. I don't think it's any real deep commitment. You have a lot of artists. The only time you hear from them in a political sense is when they want to attach themselves to a presidential candidate or a president, because now it's sexy. And now presidents are looked on as celebrities in many aspects. You have Kamala Harris going on SNL. Let's not forget Donald Trump hosted SNL back in 2015, and I think one other occasion. Now we just kind of expect it. We have candidates sitting down on podcasts, which was thought to be beneath presidential candidates in the last election cycle. So if you look at these endorsements, the only thing they have in common is celebrity wants to be near celebrities. And if you look at the different endorsers, I don't know if you saw this, the Avengers, Marvel's Avengers, they did a group endorsement on social media of Kamala Harris. And I'm just going through the Kamala Harris ones, and then I'll go into the Donald Trump ones. You had Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson doing a group where they got all the Avengers together, most of them from Don Cheadle, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and Paul Bettany, who played Vision. And they did a group endorsement of Kamala Harris. That just tells you some of the biggest movie stars in the world are getting into this. Now, whether that actually changes someone's vote, I don't know. But the thinking is you're reaching people that you didn't normally reach in previous elections. We all know about Taylor Swift, and that is one endorsement that I think did make a difference for one reason. Kamala Harris was able to reach millions of younger voters which were not in her original demographic. Taylor Swift, originally being a country singer, was able to reach young girls of different ethnicities that probably would not have been exposed to Kamala Harris as quickly or usually given previous political cycles. So that one might have made a difference as far as exposure for a political candidate who was only on the scene in a presidential sense for about 100 days. And Taylor Swift probably had a lot to do with getting her name, Kamala Harris's name, out there in a way that other entertainers probably would have had no impact. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jennifer Lopez, Madonna, of course, Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, Eminem, and with Donald Trump, Elon Musk, who also donated $75 million to a campaign super PAC. There's Hulk Hogan. We've seen a lot of him on the campaign trail, including the RNC. Mel Gibson. Did you see Megyn Kelly tonight, which was interesting? I didn't expect her to actually get out on a campaign trail, but she was with Donald Trump tonight. We heard about Dennis Quaid. John Voight, he's been no stranger to presidential politics. Jake Paul, Kelsey Grammer, and Kid Rock, just to name a few. So all of these celebrities are lending the power of their name to presidential politics. Me personally, it's strange. It's really strange. I don't know how many votes it's actually going to impact, but I think it's more about the celebrities trying to elevate themselves than the actual politician getting something out of it. But I could be wrong, and we'll find out tomorrow, or at least Wednesday, or maybe Thursday. Well, probably not till Friday, because we're not going to find out who wins the presidential election until probably closer to Thursday. Yeah, probably Thursday. It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, I'll give you my personal anecdotes of Quincy Jones, who passed away at the age of 91 yesterday.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And before we get out of here, just a few notes on Quincy Jones, who passed away yesterday at the age of 91. I'm sure everyone is given some sort of musical retrospective about how he worked with everyone from Frank Sinatra to toured with Lionel Hampton, of course, Michael Jackson, and the Thriller album. That's all the stuff that most people know. But I just want to give just a couple of anecdotes about the guy that I had run into more than a few times in the course of both my music and also radio career. In the music industry, there was no bigger name. I think he had won maybe 28 Grammy Awards. But if you looked at his discography, it was for just about every genre, every single one. There was no bigger name in music. There was no one who was more well respected. Of course, he was the guiding force behind We Are the World in 1985, the USA for Africa, and so many music projects across genres. But the guy that I ran into was probably far more humble than he really needed to be. It was Quincy frickin' Jones. And anytime you ran into him, he usually had time to talk. He usually was interested in you. What are you doing? What is it you want to do in the business? He was very quick to give just some general advice. Hey, you should possibly consider this or pursue that. He was a walking encyclopedia, of course, of music. And he started out, for people who don't know, he started out as a horn player or trumpet player, as they call it. And that was his first instrument, and that was his preferred instrument. But he developed a brain aneurysm and almost died. And the doctor said, if you continue to play the trumpet, if you know anything about playing the instrument, they call it the embouchure, where you press your lips against the instrument to make the sound, and it puts pressure on your head. And the doctor warned him, if you continue to play the trumpet, it'll probably kill you. And so he branched out into arranging and doing other things in the music business. But he always had time, at least when I ran into him. And here's something else that is probably impolitic to say and probably impolite to say so soon after his passing. But Quincy Jones loved two things, or actually more than two things. If you've ever spent any time around him, you knew that he loved the ladies, ones especially much, much younger than him, and he loved the cocktail. And they were probably at the same time. There was never a time in which I was around Quincy Jones, and I've been around him more than a handful, in which he did not have one or more beautiful young women around him, usually 50 years his junior, or and or a drink in his hand. My funniest moment with him, I wasn't physically with him. I had booked him for a radio show. I was working as a producer, and the host had, I would say, the bad idea to try to get Quincy Jones on the morning after the Grammys. Bad idea.
I got to know, what was his preferred cocktail?
Now that I don't know. I know he drank dark liquor. I don't know what his preferred cocktail was.
I feel like I must have a toast to him tonight.
Yeah, he was, I'm pretty sure he was a whiskey or a rum guy because it was always dark liquor that I saw him with.
Okay, sorry to derail you.
No,
there.
you didn't derail me at all. But I remember when I was on the phone talking to him, it's like, and he can get a little blue with the language. It's like, you effing want me to get on the phone for an interview at 8 a.m. after the Grammys? You know I'm going to be hungover. What he meant to say, is going to be drunk. Because
still drunk.
He's still drunk.
Morning drunk.
He did the interview, surprisingly enough. He was slurring every word. It got to the point where, like, I don't know if we can use this on the air because it was a pre-taped, pre-recorded interview. But he was talking about the Grammys. He was talking about his career. But he was, you could tell he was still drunk as a skunk.
I admire that.
Drunk as a skunk. But he warned us. It's like, it's not going to be a good idea.
Yeah, what would you expect?
And we had to first call either his assistant or whoever the contact was to physically go wake him up because he was not going to get out of his bed on his own. And he stumbled to the phone and he did the interview. It was barely passable, but he was a man of his word. And I'm quite sure I could dig up the interview somewhere if I looked hard enough just to listen how bad it was. But it was one of those things where he always made time. He may not have been in the best physical shape at the moment because he loved to drink.
Oh, that's sporting. You think Sinatra never showed up loaded for an interview? Come on.
No, but he had to have been in his late 70s at the time because this was about maybe 14 years ago. And I know he was drinking until the end. He was one of those things where, like, look, if I'm going out, I'm going out plastered. So he always had a drink in his hand and he always had a beautiful young lady or 8 on his arm. So I say that to say Quincy Jones, for all of his great achievements, he lived life to the fullest, to the very end. He did not get cheated. And I'm quite sure, even though he might have passed yesterday, he was living the week leading up to his passing. Oh, and here's another little anecdote. Stephanie, you may enjoy this. You know who his publicist was?
No, who was it?
Arnold Robinson. For those who don't know, it's the same publicist as Eddie Murphy. And Arnold Robinson will never give me the time of day. I try to book Eddie Murphy, and each time it gets to be a running joke between us because I'll email him every year whenever Eddie Murphy has a project out. It's like, hey, can we get Eddie on? And he's always polite. He always immediately responds, but he never even asks when I'm trying. He just says, Eddie's unavailable. But I didn't tell you what day. Eddie's unavailable. We want to get him. Eddie's unavailable. But Eddie's unavailable. How about Eddie's unavailable? He has never given me anything other than Eddie's unavailable.
And you said he would reply within like 8 minutes or something, right? Like nothing.
Immediately. It's almost like an autoresponder. I have to be autoresponder at this point. And my email comes up. Eddie's unavailable.
Did he give you the same issues with Quincy? Or was he not with him at the time?
I don't think I ever reached out to him for Quincy. I try to go through other music industry people. Like I kind of know one of his daughters, that kind of thing. I was trying to go through that route. I wouldn't go through Arnold Robinson. I don't have any direct connect to Eddie, so that's the only reason I would go through Arnold Robinson. But yeah, someone that loved life, obviously gave more to all of us than life gave to him. He will sincerely be missed, but he was a good dude as far as what he did for other people. Up and coming musicians. You know, if you saw the movie Ray, you know what he did for Ray Charles. He was a conscious and conscientious individual. He cared about the legacy of music and also African American music art form. There's no way you can listen to the radio any day and not hear something that he touched. It's just not possible. It is not possible. I'm sorry that he's gone. I knew this time was going to come. And this is the only thing which made it difficult for me. I was introduced to Quincy Jones, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years old, as far as his music, not the person, but his music. My father introduced me to Quincy Jones. So I knew everything about Quincy Jones from his professional history, everything. And I thought today, it's like, oh my goodness, Quincy Jones passed. Let me go tell my father.
Oh, man.
Yeah. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Well, at least you've decided to listen to KFI. See, you're making progress.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live every